What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we are kicking off part 4 of this Arcane Bridging the Rift series. I am very excited to get into this episode. Well, I'm excited for all the episodes, but this episode we are specifically getting into the music behind Arcane, which just another thing about the show that was just next level. I almost didn't realize it at the time, but going back, because my rewatches have started, the music is such a central part of the show. Even looking at like the titles of some of the different episodes, and I think it was episode 6 that had the Guns for Hire. Yeah, I got literal goosebumps watching that. I personally love when projects create music specifically to cater to project. Like Spider-Verse was a really big one for me. I love both of those albums, but especially Across the Spider-Verse. Then it does this thing where it's like you can almost relive the movie, or in this case the show, just from hearing the different songs. I'm still bumping Self-Love to this day from Across the Spider-Verse. And call me crazy, but I feel like it's another just great storytelling tool when you can have songs tie into the story and it kind of almost sounds like it's coming from that character's POV, kind of like what the Enemy music video did with Jinx. It's beautiful. We love to see it. So that is what we're going to be getting into today, guys. So as I always like to say, guys, we gonna stop all that talking. We gonna get to this reaction. Time to prove them all wrong once again. Episode 5. Who said that? Oh no, not this score. I know where this is from. Getting that melancholy feeling. Told you to stay away. Yeah, I can laugh about it now, but
at Riot, we've always loved music. In fact, in certain countries, people don't call us a game company.
Isn't Christian like a musician?
They call us a music company, and they say we're making games to do marketing for our music. And so, obviously, when we dived into a TV show, we knew music was going to be a big part of it.
Music is obviously personal to Christian. It's personal to a lot of folks on that team.
I think Alex you once said, when you go write a script, and I think it's the same thing with music, when you go write a song and you sit down to do it and someone asks you, oh, are you gonna write a great song today? It's kind of like,
I hope so.
Maybe, it's kind of like going fishing.
Right.
I know what tools to use.
Oh, is that the playground?
I have experience to know where the best spots are.
Welcome to the playground.
But whether or not I'm actually gonna catch one, We've worked on all kinds of genres at this point, and when Arcane came about, we said, hey, we're gonna craft a full album of all these different songs, of all these different genres. It really was the culmination of all the different skill sets that we've developed over the many years on the music team to craft something that's really
The range for the genres was crazy. Oh, I'm already getting goosebumps, guys. I wonder, like, at what point in the process do they're like, okay, let's start incorporating music now? Is it after animating? Is it while they're doing storyboards?
This is where we make some of the music for Arcane. Follow me. So we were going for an incredibly messy aesthetic of gear everywhere. We don't invite people over. You're the first human beings I've seen or invited here in years.
I'm honored to be here.
No windows. I love this space so much. It's the first time I've been able to have like an actual piano. I've got the most important instrument of them all, obviously, the French horn here. Everything I do is just French horn, and then I'll just auto-tune it to sound like other instruments. It's a cool trick that I learned in school. Just kidding, I'm way in debt for my college loans. It's a sad story.
What made Seaver really, really special is that he's not only extremely talented at writing melodies, for pop vocals, but also he's a classically trained musician. He went to Juilliard as a French horn player, and when that career failed, he became a really successful pop artist.
I've been working with Riot since about 2016. each year for their Worlds event, the biggest esports tournament probably
He's
ever.
actually
We
watched one
write
of
an anthem
these.
for them, so like a big pop song. Legends Never Die was the first like Worlds anthem that I wrote. And about 2.5 years ago, Christian reached out and he's like, "What do you think about Arcane? Do you want to get involved?" And I was just like, "Oh yes, please, this would be the sickest."
We always wanted to make music part of the development from the very beginning instead of just this post-production phase, you know, that it often is in film and television.
The first time I heard about Arcane was pretty much a series of index cards stuck to the acoustic treatment in Christian's composing room. Technically, he was still a composer then, but he had the story that he wanted to tell, and he had ideas for who he wanted to help him tell it.
Wonder what he started as first. Like a Christian. Like, was it music
On
or?
Arcane started with Alex Temple, who is just an incredible composer.
But at that point, I hadn't done any longer form narrative work. I'd done shorter form narrative, whether it's like a 3 to 5 minute trailer or things like that, but nothing approaching the scope of Arcane.
Can you show me what this is?
So this is a gudgeon. I might be pronouncing it slightly incorrectly, but yeah, normally it's played. It has a pentatonic scale, and you can affect the pitch by, you know, bending over here. I've been using it completely incorrectly, you know, playing the back side of the instrument. Or
Sounds
even
cursed.
sort of playing it with this singing bowl mallet.
For the first few months at least, we actually stayed away from any like picture material from the show, and we just explored themes in isolation for a character, every character.
I think when working on a theme, you want something that clearly makes a statement about who this character is, but you also want something that's adaptable. So this is the beginning of episode 3.
Where do you even
We have
start?
this vocal melody that comes in. So for
So
example,
cool.
with this character Silco, you know, he's kind of one of the villains of the show. He's a complex character. He has good reasons for some of his motives, but he's sort of a villain. The music that I end up writing for him is not sort of villainous at all. It's very sort of welcoming and kind of seductive in a way. So sometimes when we use these sort of motifs, they come back in kind of subtle ways. Kind of very confused, distorted version of that melody we heard performed so beautifully by the soprano in the other cue.
We really wanted to have just melodies, you know, for characters. Like, really, like you should feel like you remember this character in this moment when you hear this melody. They're always there, but sometimes they're darker, sometimes they're brighter, sometimes they're faster, but they're always there.
Oh,
Alex Temple, the lead composer, he's just such a god-tier orchestra composer, like to a level I can't get to.
First violins at bar 13 can play that out a little more.
Okay.
Thanks. One more for luck, and then we'll move on.
It's funny because I was a French horn player growing up, and so I listened to just all this Mahler and like Bruckner and all these people, and so I thought I was obsessed with it, and then I'd talk Mahler with him, and he's just like, oh, the specific recording of George Schulte from 1975, I prefer the third movement versus the Bernstein recording, and you're like, okay, all right, you win the nerd contest.
God, I love how the violin sounds. Dude, look at like the passion in his face.
So Ray Chen is a phenomenal violinist. You never know quite what it's going to be like working with, you know, somebody who's at the top of their field.
Ray plays as a soloist with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, the big orchestras in Europe, you know, London, He's probably the first classical violinist who plays on like a 20 whatever $1 million Stradivarius to an animated series.
He's got a lot of patience. A lot of the time, the music I put in front of him, it's written because we know he can play it.
Oh, was that the, yeah. Wait, did they animate him into the show? That's supposed to be him?
I don't know about that.
That was horrible, my God.
Yes, who was the composer who composed this?
We're approaching the finale of the first season. It's getting very dramatic for all of our characters. This is a cue that's based on the theme of the character Victor. This is around the time when
I love
he
Victor's theme.
pushes his body and the transformation further and further, and kind of gets seduced in a way by this hex core, and starts to kind of lose parts of his humanity. And there's kind of like a like a terrible beauty, if that makes sense.
It's a really tragic moment, but it's also kind of a tragic ascendancy because it's like, it's not a good thing that's happening. But at the same time, this is kind of like a leveling up of the character. This is an important stage of his development.
I've been doing orchestra stuff with Alex Temple for about 2.5 years. And it was only about a year ago that we were like, let's do a 11, 12 song pop soundtrack to go with the show.
This was my favorite song on the soundtrack. I don't care. I feel like no one pays attention to this song on the soundtrack.
We
And it's so
also
good.
wanted to create these special moments in every episode with music. And so with the editors and the directors of our team, we tried to find a moment where the music can actually take over and be in the spotlight.
I declare war on anybody standing in the way of what I dreamed for. How could you ignore?
Working on Arcane, the pressure is pretty high. All these great, amazing artists, and the story is amazing, and the animation is amazing, the score is amazing, the sound is great, the music has to be
Like
good
an
too, the
Echo
songs
shirt?
have to be good.
Sebastian is like ultimate homie for me.
Don't play with the Misfits.
We did Rise together, did Awaken together. I cannot wait to work with him any chance I get.
Sebastian is this interesting character. I remember in his interview, we always asked him, like, what kind of song would you make for this character, for that moment? And he would just go, I don't know. And so we were like, we don't know if he's the right guy for the job. And then you just start hearing the songs, and all of a sudden, you're just blown away. He's the kind of person that just does, but doesn't talk about it. We call these the banger labs, where all the bangers are made. Well, have we heard there's some music going on?
So I had already worked on cinematics for Riot and music videos and things like that. But Arcane, the extra difficulty was that, the purpose of the song is for a scene, is for the story.
Who told you it was about you?
Unlike other movies and shows that might have just like a standalone.
The way this song
incidental
sounds is
soundtrack of
so
pop artists,
satisfying.
we actually wrote these to picture the way that you would
Like I feel like I'm
score
in a
something.
junkyard.
Your face around you. Come along, tell me under the table. What do you see?
I know for Sebastian and myself, it was like really difficult to figure out that language where we're getting things to feel like a song, but also getting them to dodge between dialogue or hit peak moments to picture, which might not be happening at a set tempo.
I think so much in what we do with the songs, you can kind of find parts of the world as well. Like Zon, this underground world where a lot of things kind of get repurposed, reused, mangled, distorted. That's what the drums kind of also tell me. Where I feel like, okay, if Jinx would design a kick drum, what would it sound like?
Yo,
When we worked with B. Miller,
She's, like,
she had
standing
recorded
in?
some really amazing improvisations.
Who's, like, standing in
this,
Zon?
for example, is She totally understood the vibe of what we were trying to convey.
Build
and
a
sang
set?
these on, and it just was perfect.
Like we
My
need
dream
an
was that we
Arcane
could kind of
amusement
write the songs
park.
early enough so we can even still edit, you know, sequences and boards to the music. I think what we found pretty fast is that we would have this issue that we would approach all these artists and we'd say, "Oh, we want to make music with you, make these songs," and they say, "Oh, cool, that's awesome. When do they go out?" And we would tell them like, "Oh, in 2 years," and they would go, "Oh, never mind." You know, so what we did instead is to actually write the songs ourselves, and then bring on the artist to kind of like, you know, either just sing it or find their version of it.
Wherever you are, light it up, and I'll find you.
Oh yes, this is the one I want to get into.
Funny enough, we didn't even initially think about Wood Kid for this song. We had him for a different one, and he happened to hear this demo and went, "Oh, let me do that one instead."
String sounds so good in that
It was
song.
the greatest thing that could have ever happened. This was like sort of an action-y piece when I had first written it, and then he turned it into the most chill-inducing string thing I've ever heard. But yeah, so like it always just starts here, and then you never quite know what it's gonna end up being.
And it gives me like James Bond a little bit.
The other big one was the Jinx Echo fight in episode 7. Got that vibe figured out.
Oh, this song
The
had me so
vocalist,
hyped.
The rapper, we're like, okay, we have some ideas of who could be super cool. Like, okay, let's see what can, you know, let's send the track to them and see do they want to do it, and also, you know, are they going to do something that fits? You know, Denzel Curry was one of them.
In this gothic underground city, we all sin. If I bring a couple rounds with me,
Yeah.
then we all win.
Jizzle was another one.
Just might kick your butt, go run amok, then paint my nails. Never learned to raise my hand, was too busy raising hell.
And Brenjo, he sent us a demo that was kind of sounded like a female vocal. I was like, oh, that's a really cool, catchy kind of chorus part. Turns out it was him just pitched up.
Oh yeah, you mad, I'm racking up white diamonds. Throw me in the sky, you would sweat the sun shining.
All three sent us really
Yeah, I
awesome
thought that was a girl. I'm not gonna lie.
So we got 3 demos, like, oh my god, like, what can we do? A little bit of a challenge just from having so much good material. How do we make it in, how do we make 3 songs into 1 song? Let's try to use all 3.
Oh, I'm getting chilled all over again, man.
That was one cool and challenging thing about working on Arcane songs is you get these puzzles that you have to solve.
Good stuff.
Season 1, everything we did for music was kind of happening then like after the episodes were already done, and so now if we do it early enough, we would have the ability for the artist to just kind of write whatever they want, and then we can cut the episodes to it. I think it was such a limitation for the writing musicians, you know?
Working with Christian is pretty special because he's a musician. That's also another great thing about him is that he's not going to waste time. If it's not great, he'll tell you. He'll tell you right away, yeah, it's not working.
Can you play the 57, just solo it real quick? I just want to hear it because I don't know if the orchestra always makes me feel like it's more convoluted than what it actually is.
Christian started his career at Riot in an entry-level position, answering tickets when players have a problem, whether it's a technical problem or billing problems.
Wow.
Then only a couple years later, he started to write some music, and only then we realized, oh my God, this guy is an amazing talent.
Dude started in customer
Christian,
service?
The first time I met him, he came onto campus, very quiet, very unassuming, other than, of course, the neck tattoo. And, you know, I'm like, so, you know, tell me, what jobs have you worked? What have you done prior to coming here? And he's like, oh, well, you know, I did some music. You know, I was in a band. I traveled around Europe doing some tour kind of stuff. I was like, don't care. How well will you serve the players? It took me a little while to realize that he was, in fact, a big deal. I believe he told me the biggest audience he played in front of was like 100,000 people.
Christian's a freak because he gives us feedback like, no, the cello needs to be an octave lower and it needs to be this dynamic. Like, he just knows how to speak music. That's my favorite Christian feedback. When I released my album, I had one song that I was like super into, and I'm still really happy with it, but I just remember Christian was like, and Christian liked it when I was working on it, and then he heard the final, he's like, it sounds unfinished.
You know, you gotta break them before we can build them up.
Yeah, we're also
blossom like a flower.
Establish dependence.
He goes to give us high fives and we flinch.
Right.
We're all so broken.
Ready?
It's going. It's just the episode 8 track where he's gonna have to pivot. It's the last song we had to.
This dude can do it all, man.
The hardest one.
Yeah, really.
The concept was
ambitious.
Ambitious and hard to execute.
When you kind of go into it knowing, like, by the way, this is the big champion moment for Vi and for Jace, and this needs to be great, and you just
I always say like this song has like the Powerpuff
question
Girl
every
drums.
choice you make, because it's like, but is it great? And so it's also just expectations are always really high. So this is a bit of a Hail Mary just to kind of say, hey, we couldn't really figure it out, and so someone had recommended Paris, you know, just because she has a really cool sound, and then we just kind of went, maybe we should just let her do her thing. So this is like a demo they send over, and yeah, we're just kind of opening it up for the first time.
See, those sound like Powerpuff Girl drums to me. I get so hype every time I see this, and then I remember like
That's pretty cool.
the kid died.
That's pretty cool.
Feels like that. Feels right.
You know, her voice just feels like kind of something that Vi would. The attitude's really, really fun. She even has like the shaved side, and then like the nose ring. I was like, she kind of is Vi.
Yep. Imagine Dragons. Y'all can never make me hate Imagine Dragons.
Dan from Imagine Dragons, and this is our studio. This is where we did Enemy. So I'll take you on back.
Like YouTube is gonna cut all of that out.
Well, hello.
Oh, hello there.
This is Daniel Platzman, our drummer. How's it going? Ben McKee, our bass player.
Oh, fancy meeting you here.
And Wayne Sermon, the guitarist. And this wasn't planned at all. I can't believe you guys are in here at this exact time.
What are you doing here?
I just felt like I needed to be here.
Vi is actually the player that I play on League of Legends, so I definitely associated with it. And
that was the question I had. Like,
yeah.
Do all of you play, or some of you?
The three of us play. So Platzman plays. Ben's a more old school gamer.
Did you try League? I have tried League. It is. I am a simple man.
We've certainly been. We have definitely been late on stage.
Cool that they're players though.
Tens of thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, because we were finishing a ranked League of Legends game, and we didn't want to get banned. I love Riot. We've worked with them for a long time, and we've been a part of the community for years. And I love Christian. We vibed out. He told me about what he'd been working on. He showed me a lot of slides and storyboard. At that time, it was in the very early stages of Arcane. But it was enough that I understood the dynamic at play with, you know, the sisters and Vi and Jinx.
What makes you different makes you strong.
I didn't need
You
to
know,
see that
as far
slap
as Enemy
again.
goes, I think there's a lot of times in people's lives where you just feel like alone, or you feel isolated. And that song is written in isolation and feeling kind of you against the world. Searching to be home, stories in a tone. When my back was to the world, smiling when I turned. Tell you you're the greatest. But once you turn, they hate us. Oh, I swear I'll never be the same.
He's like, that's all you're gonna get from us today? Oh,
I mean, it goes
gosh.
without saying, like, the last scene of season 1 is probably going to be an important scene. And it was this beautiful montage, and they had tempted up with this, like, stunning David Bowie song. And they're like, you know, Alex, could you write us a song that fills this moment? And you're like, sure, I'm going to have a panic attack first. I'm going to go see
Killed
my
it, though.
therapist. And then as soon as I center myself,
And they got Sting
try
to
and
do
write
it?
a
Like,
song that lives up to that moment. So here's some of the initial stems that I had done. It was just like a piano and my own vocal. I am the monster you created, ripped out all my parts. The way it starts is just like a person just like lamenting. I mean, it was really Jinx's voice in this song. The lyrics for that one came quickly. The difficulty with that was writing a song that's structured properly, because Jinx fires this rocket at first, which is like a beautiful moment as it soars across the sky.
it was really beautiful.
And I wasn't at the point in the song that something that big was supposed to happen yet. So we had to like figure out how to write almost like a bridge section that is this rocket blast moment before we get back to the second verse and before we continue the song. Christian would give us feedback and we'd kind of hit our stride, and then it would be like, okay, which artists do we want to have sing this?
Violin is... God.
I am your ghost, a fallen angel. You ripped out all my parts.
Sting was at the top of our list. I
God.
mean, it's pretty convenient to be like, oh, we'd love to have Sting. Like, oh yeah, would you? But we had him there, and we were able to talk to him about it and get him into it and show him the sequence, and he was just really generous, and it did exactly what we had hoped, which is just elevate it into this moment that is kind of above everything else. Like when you hear Sting's voice enter, you're just like,
Yeah. Voice is so unique too.
What could have been?
A violin solo in that song.
You know, it's funny because you work on these moments for so long until you actually, like, you think, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. But you just don't quite know until you actually see everything done. And you just have that feeling for like 2 or 3 years where you go, I think it's going to be amazing, but I'm not quite sure. And you just kind of have to wait because you just, you know, does the music come together? Does it have that kind of magical touch? You know, like, does the storytelling come together? Does the acting kind of come together?
We're bleeding money, and for what? His dreams of rebellion. He's losing control.
I'm curious to see how it will go when this show hits all the platforms so people can watch it and it's released, and how it'll go for our league audience, you know, and also kind of like the general audience. A league audience, they will certainly tell us how they feel. It changes the emotion, but all I really hear is just the... It's pretty scary to know that you're working on something that really cannot fail, you know? Like,
Right.
that's not an option. And so it just makes you question everything.
I can't imagine that pressure. Anything, I'd say my only complaint is that we didn't spend enough time with Our Love, because that was my favorite song on the album. Is my favorite song on the album. Okay, I'm just gonna start it off by saying this because I feel like it just has to be said. What can't Christian do? Like, I'm not even trying to gas this man up. Like, this man can literally do everything. Like the part where Alex was like, oh yeah, when we were like hiring Christian, he was just like, oh yeah, I do music. And then you're just casually like, yeah, like the biggest crowd I performed in front of is like 100,000 people. Sir, found it so cool that he got his start from just like a customer service position at Riot. How do you go from that to just being like creative director for Arcane? That is crazy to me. Dude is so inspirational, man. When it comes to this soundtrack, picking like your favorite song is almost nearly impossible because honestly, like there really isn't any misses on that album. I think the only song that I don't really listen to, if I had to pick one that was like my least favorite, is probably like one of the last songs. I think it was in episode 9, where it had kind of like that country sound to it. I think it was what scene was it? I think it was a scene with Vi and Savika fighting. That second fight. You guys know what I'm talking about? I think if anything, that's probably the only song that I tend to skip over when listening to the album. I feel like a lot of people, like their favorite songs are either, you know, Welcome to the Playground, Guns for Hire, Dynasties and Dystopias, or like What Could Have Been. Because those are like the really like big songs that had like huge moments. And Goodbye too. I'm like naming the entire album. And Enemy, might as well throw that on there. The entire album's a banger if you couldn't tell. I feel like Our Love gets overlooked a lot because I mean it was like episode 2, which, you know, everyone I've talked to, they were like, yeah, that was the slowest episode. No one ever really talks about episode 2, so I think that that's probably why it gets overlooked a lot. But it's just such a good song. The rest of this video is going to be me just ranting about why that song deserves all the attention and all the love. Also, I'm like a huge Jasmine Sullivan fan, and when I found out that the Jasmine Sullivan was on the soundtrack for Arcane, I never saw that even being like in the same conversation, being in the same room. Jasmine Sullivan and Arcane, like, also it's got like this really cool Motown vibe, and your girl's from Michigan. Like, I know I wear a lot of like LA gear, but your girl's from Michigan, and I'm a Motown girl through and through. That's the home of Motown. So when I first heard that in episode 2, I was like, it's giving my girl Temptations a little bit. I don't know, it's just such a feel-good song, and I feel like a lot of people probably, they think of the song and they think of like the scene where, you know, Vi's getting ready to turn herself in. You know, it's such a happy and kind of like warm song for such a sad moment. I always see people like ranking the songs and it's always so low on the list. And I'm just like, why? It's so good. I don't know, I was kind of hoping we'd get to see maybe Curtis or Jasmine in the booth with this one, but you win some, you lose some. We got a lot of cool insight this episode. I think after Our Love, Guns for Hire is probably second for me. I don't know, because What Could Have Been is, I don't know, Guns for Hire and What Could Have Been are kind of like neck and neck for me, because What Could Have Been just hits just right here, and then the violin solo, but then like Guns for Hire has that really cinematic feel, and I don't know, I feel like I'm in a James Bond movie every time I hear that song. The next time you guys get on a treadmill, like, just trust me, the next time you guys get on a treadmill, play Guns for Hire. You will not be disappointed. I low-key told myself, like, I'm gonna get on this treadmill and I'm gonna pretend that I'm Vi running to powder. It was so bad, but I mean, that was one of the best workouts of my life. I think if anything, the thing that really connected me with like the score and a lot of the songs for the series, I am a sucker for strings. I remember the first time I heard What Could Have Been, you know, outside of the show, when I actually looked up the soundtrack afterwards, because they don't have like the violin solo in the show, because, you know, some things have to get cut for the story, but I wasn't expecting the violin solo when I first heard it, because I hadn't heard it in the finale. And when I heard that violin solo, like, I was literally sitting here like it was just, I love it. You know what? I know I said they were neck and neck, but I think What Could Have Been might beat out Guns for Hire just because of that violin solo. So I'll say Our Love. That's my top 3. Our Love, and this was not easy for me because Dynasties and Dystopias. But I'd probably say Our Love, What Could Have Been, and then Guns for Hire. I don't know, it changes every day depending on my mood, but I feel like that's pretty solid. My top 3. Honorable mention, Dynasties and Dystopias. Well guys, if you guys have made it this far into the video, thank you so much for sticking around and checking your girl out. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video as much as I know I enjoyed reacting to it, please feel free to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you're really feeling it. Also, just a reminder, if you guys ever want to check out some of my other social media platforms, I will be posting them right up here for you guys. So please feel free to go and check those out. I'm an artsy girl, and you know what? I actually want to start showcasing that a little bit more on the channel. So if you guys have any suggestions, I don't know, maybe just me sketching or whatever, I don't know. I'll cross that bridge when we get there. Hopefully Marcus isn't at the end. Okay guys, I'm done with the jokes. Also, just a quick reminder for people who may not have those social media platforms, I will be posting my email down below in the bio. That way, if you guys want to reach out, just, I don't know, talk about Arcane, there'll be some recommendations of TV shows or movies to check out. That way you guys can do that. So definitely make sure to check the bio below. And in the meantime, I will be catching y'all in the next video. So until then, I will be seeing y'all.